Hey everyone, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Justin, and over the weekend, the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday night played the Boston Bruins in Boston and came away with a 4-3 regulation loss after giving up a goal with only, less than a couple minutes left in the game. And look, if you know me and my content, you've seen me before, I've said it many times, I do think that I am a very positive Leafs fan. I am overly positive. I support them when they don't deserve it. I justify all the decisions they make. I am relentlessly optimistic for them. Year in, year out, I always, fall flat on my face with that mentality, but I stand by it and I'm happy to be that kind of person. However, this past weekend against Boston, I do think that this is quite frankly underreported on how disappointing that Leafs loss was. And in fact, a lot of the reviews that I've seen online, a lot of people's opinions have been, for the most part, very surprisingly, very positive. People thinking, well, we only lost 4-3. Had it not been for a couple giveaways here or there, it would have been a different story. Taking the message that we're right there with the Boston Bruins, who are far and away the best team in the entire NHL. And the fact that, we'll learn from this and get to it next time. And I think that is the complete wrong mentality to be taking from this game. And this one game in particular deserves a lot more criticism than people have been giving it. Now, I get it. An entire season is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You go through a lot of different things throughout a regular season of 82 games. You go through certain storylines like players hitting milestones like we saw with Mitch Marner earlier this year, or you go through really low lows like we had at the beginning of the season, you go through highs like we had shortly thereafter. It's this journey. It goes up and down, and you ultimately learn and build towards something better and important that you see in the postseason. That's what it's all about. That's the whole point of the regular season. I get that. And that is the case for most of the time. You're trying to build the right habits, whether you win or you lose. You're trying to play the right way so that you get the results you want when it matters the most. But there are certain games in a regular season that, to me, stand out as, no, these are games you need to win. And it's a non-negotiable. It doesn't matter whether you were the better team, whether you got outplayed, whether you have injuries, whether you're fully healthy, it does not matter. There are games that you have written on the schedule that we're taking this one seriously and we're coming out with a win. And to me, there was no game this year so far, and I don't think any game for the rest of the season that mattered as much as this game in Boston. Why? Well, first of all, obviously the history between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. We want to get some revenge on them. But bigger than that, the Leafs have constantly, Sheldon Keefe in particular, has constantly been saying the goal isn't just to do well in the playoffs, it's to build the team throughout the regular season, a team strong enough to win a division, get home ice advantage, and even contend for a President's Trophy. Well, they're in second in the NHL. The first place team in that President's Trophy spot is the Boston Bruins, and they've got a heavy advantage on you in the standings. If you have any chance whatsoever of getting that President's Trophy, which it's looking like far-fetched regardless, you had to not only win this game, but win it in regulation. You needed to steal 2 points from the Boston Bruins, take a game in hand away from them, and build a 4-point differential in the standings. And you didn't even get to overtime in this game, which I don't think even would have been acceptable as it is. You didn't get to overtime. You handed the Boston Bruins 2 points. You lost 2 points. It's virtually completely out of touch now. The Leafs would need an absolute miracle in the second half of the season and Boston to go on a tremendous slide of 5 or 6 straight games without a point in order to even build up some sort of ground to make it feasible to contend for the President's Trophy. So for the entire season, for this entire preseason, for Sheldon Keefe to be coming out, for Kyle Dubas to be coming out, for all the players to be coming out and saying, no, we're not looking just to be okay. We're looking to be the best. We're looking to win the division. We're looking to win the President's Trophy and to have an opportunity present itself like this in this fashion against your rival, and you don't get a point. That's a big deal. We cannot understate that that is a big deal. The fact that this is the exact game, the exact moment that all of these people have been saying is what's important to the team, and they don't find a way to win. And I get it. You win games, you lose games. You have good performances and losses. You have bad performances and wins. You take the good from the ugly. You move on, you learn, and you get better. But in a game like this is the kind of game, all the situation leading up to it, it's labeled as a big game. It's labeled as a must win, just like the playoffs are. And what has killed this team in the past? It's been their mentality in the big games. Anytime they walk into a playoff game where they've got the opportunity to eliminate the opponent, like they had 3 times against Montreal, they lost. Anytime they go into an elimination game, Game 7, Game 5 against Columbus, they lost. So in their heads, they think, we get to these big moments and we're not good enough to get it done. Well, even though this wasn't the playoffs, this was a game that the team needed to act mentally, physically, everything like it was do or die, like it was Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I know that sounds dramatic. I mean, we're 42 games into the regular season, but you need to practice. Like, that's what the regular season is for, right? It's practicing, it's gearing up for the playoffs. And again, some games that means just, right habits, whether you win or you lose, building the right habits. This game in particular, this was practice for an elimination game. This was practice for the playoffs. This was practice for when it matters most. And I said it in my last video, whether you play well or you play off, whether you have injuries or whether you're healthy, it doesn't matter. We need results in this game. Need the win. Because in the playoffs, you're not always going to be able to dominate the other team. In fact, that rarely ever happens. You're not always going to be able to put your best foot forward. You might feel a little bit sick. You might be banged up. In fact, you most likely are. But you need to be able to find a way. Dig in. Do whatever it takes to win the game. That's all. You could be outshot 50-20. But if you put up more goals than the other team, you win the game. Simple as that. The Leafs needed to practice that, and they failed. They came up short, and it's truly, truly disappointing to me. And it's disappointing that the media, after being so negative for this team year and year and year and year, to now say that that was an acceptable game. And the Leafs were right there with Boston. They only lost 4-3. It was a bad giveaway with under 2 minutes left. They blew it, but they were right there and they'll learn from it. That's not the case. That cannot be the mentality. And if I'm Sheldon Keefe, this was not an acceptable game. Not at all. Given the fact that they also got dominated. Not to say that they were bad. The Leafs were not bad in this game. They were borderline good in this game. But Boston was better. From the drop of the puck, from the first shift on the ice, Boston was better. And they continued to be better throughout the entire game. Yeah, the Leafs had stretches where they controlled the play. But never once did I think that Boston felt that they were on their heels. Never once did I think that Boston thought that they were at risk of losing the game. Even when Toronto had the lead, Boston never felt afraid. Because the Leafs didn't play the better game. Boston did. But that doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to have that in the playoffs. Find a way to win. Not only did they not find a way to win, they found a way to lose. The Leafs shot themselves in the foot. Time and time and time again. Morgan Rielly with a terrible giveaway in the first. Connor Timmins with the bad read in front of the net. Boston gets their first goal. I don't know if it was the second goal, but Connor Timmins, D-to-D, no-look pass, exactly the likes of Alex Galchenyuk in an important playoff game against Montreal. Sends David Pastrnak in on a 2-on-1. He scores. There's another one. John Tavares, 2 minutes left in the game. Turnover, bad reads, it's in the back of your net and you lose. So instead of finding a way to dig in deep, to do whatever you can to get a win, when the game's not going your way, when you're not playing your perfect game, when you're getting outplayed by Boston, you're right there to take it from them and you give it to them. That's a major concern. A major concern. I don't see how people can think that that's not a glaring issue that this team has had for years and years now. Every single year, it's the Leafs finding a way to lose, not finding a way to win. This was not a regular season game. This was a playoff game in the middle of the regular season. It was a playoff game, and the Leafs fell short. So the Leafs are looking like they're going to play Tampa in the first round. And heck, we don't even know who's going to have home ice because Tampa's right there in the standings, right behind them. But even if Toronto does get home ice, they got to be able to go up against the Tampa Bay Lightning and eliminate them in round one, just to probably play Boston in round two. It's not going to be easy. Nothing's given to you. You need to find a way to win. That's it. Plain and simple. I'm disappointed. For me, Kyle Dubas, when he's looking at the trade deadline, when he's looking at moves he needs to make, I'm forgetting the body of work so far this season from most players. I'm, honest to God, looking at this one game and seeing what fell short in this game. What was the main contributing factor that led to us losing this game? Because this is the kind of game that you are going to see in the playoffs. This is the exact game. So who stepped up? Who didn't? Do you need help on your forward group? Your defensive group? This is the biggest measuring stick that Kyle Dubas has to figure out what is needed for this team. Because I've even said a couple videos ago, what do the Leafs do? They've been playing so well this year. They're a top 5 team in the NHL. They're second in the division. They're chasing the Boston Bruins for the President's Trophy. Aside from a bad start to the season, they've been lights out. They've had depth scoring. They've had their big guys step up. They've had injuries. They've played through it. They've had defensive depth. They've had goaltenders playing fantastic. What do they need? How do you evaluate it when you're playing so well? This is the game. This is the time. You look at this game and you see, this is how we play in the playoffs. What are we missing? I'm sad to say that Connor Timmins played his worst game of the year and the most important one. That could have very well locked him out of the playoff lineup. That could be dramatic. We're 42 games in, but boy, was it bad. Morgan Rielly. I mean, you're not moving Morgan Rielly, but he did not play well. William Nylander, who's the leading scorer on the team right now, I thought had a bad game. Some people said he had a good game. I thought that he was lazy. I thought that he just couldn't produce anything. I was disappointed. Like Austin Matthews, who's reportedly sick and dealing with an injury, had the best game of any forward, in my opinion. You got to look at this and make adjustments. Look, at the end of the day, it's a regular season game, so it's not actually going to have much of an impact. And when the playoffs come around, everybody's going to have forgotten about this. And we're going to be talking about a completely different storyline as the Leafs head into the real deal. The real thing. But this was the biggest telltale sign so far this year. Even with that bad start, this is the biggest telltale sign to say that, you know what, we've got a really good team, but I don't know if we're still capable of doing it. And let me ask you this question. I'll pose this. The Tampa Bay Lightning are in the same boat as Toronto. I mean, everybody's upset about the playoff format, and I am too. The fact that 3 of the top, 6 teams in the NHL are in the top 3 of a division and have to face each other in the first 2 rounds. I think it's absurd. I think it's bad for the NHL. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are in the same situation. They have to go against the Toronto Maple Leafs in round 1, right? The second place team in the NHL. And if they manage to get through Toronto, they have to play the Boston Bruins, the team that's on pace for the best regular season record in NHL history. I don't know. I'm not a Tampa fan. So if you are a Tampa fan, I would love to hear. But I don't think they're afraid at all. I don't think they're even complaining. I think they think, hell, we're good enough to do that. We've been to 3 straight Stanley Cups. We won back-to-back finals. We don't care who we play. It could be the first place team in the NHL and we will win. Because it's a mentality, right? It's the way the team's built. They know they are a championship pedigree. Even though the Leafs are better in the standings, even though the Leafs have probably the better regular season record so far, The Tampa Bay Lightning have what it takes in those moments. They are experienced in stepping up and winning games that they need to win. So they're not afraid at all at anything that is thrown at them. Whereas the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that's very good, a team that's got an incredible record, incredible accomplishments, and incredible skill, is nervous not even for round 2 when they likely have to play Boston, but round 1, and we don't even know who we're playing yet. That's the difference. And if the Leafs had walked into this game against Boston and won in regulation, I would be so confident. And I would be so happy for the players, because I honestly think that the players would then look and go like, hey, we can beat anybody. Doesn't matter who. We can beat anybody in this league. Put us against anybody in round 1 and we will win, because we just showed ourselves that we can win when it matters most. And they did the opposite. And it's disappointing. So anyway, there's my thoughts about the game. Love to hear your thoughts too. And if you're positive about it, I don't blame you. I think it's great to have a positive outlook. It's great to take the good from the ugly. It's great to live and learn and adjust and get better for when the playoffs happen. So I would never blame you for being positive, but I think everybody just needs to think a little bit harder about how much that game meant and what exactly it was. But thank you so much for clicking on this video, and I will see you in the next one.